Okay, good morning. Welcome to the August Board of Adjustments. My name is Larry Otterback. It's 9:02 and we are now in session. We have 4 cases this morning before us. The procedures for all 4 are going to be the same. Here in a minute I'm going to swear staff in. We will have our Mr. Pate will read the case. Staff will present the case before us. There'll be a round of questioning by the board members to staff. When we're done with that, staff's going to take a seat and I'll call you, the applicant, forward. You're going to come forward, raise your right hand, state your name and address, and be sworn in. You'll have 20 minutes to tell us what you're trying to do with the project and justify it. When you're done with that, there might be a round of questioning by board members to you, the applicant. When we're done, you may take a seat, and then I will call forward anybody that wishes to speak in favor, and then those who are opposed to the application. Both of those will have 10 minutes each. Those in favor will have 10 minutes, and then those opposed will also have 10 minutes. Likewise, there's going to be a round of questioning by the board members to those in favor and those opposed. When we're done with that, those individuals may take a seat. Following that, there will be a time for rebuttal and then final statements, 5 minutes for each. The rebuttal's 5 minutes, the final statement's 5 minutes. And following that, I'll open it up to board members for questions for anybody in the audience. And then I'll close the floor, open it up for general discussion among board members, and then take an up and down vote. Please make sure your cell phones are off or on vibrate. If you need to use your cell phone, please excuse yourself from the courtroom. Just make sure it's off when you come back in. Board members, make sure your mics are on. And with that, let's swear staff in.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Mr. Pate, you want to read the first one?
Yes, docket number OC18027. An application has been filed requesting a conditional use permit for a home occupation art therapy on property located at 6207 Oakley Drive, Crestwood.
Shelley, is that on? Just want to make sure.
Recording.
Okay. Good morning, Brooke Beeman, Senior Planner with Oldham County Planning and Development Services. As Mr. Pate stated, the applicant is requesting a conditional use permit for a home occupation for art therapy on 1.7 acres. The property zoning is AG1. The land use is residential. This is an aerial view of the site. The subject property is outlined in red. And this is a zoomed in view of the property. Section 26030, conditional use standards for home occupations, states the applications for home occupations must seek either a conditional use permit from the Board of Adjustments or a home occupation permit from the administrator. The applicant did not qualify for administrative approval because customers will visit the property by appointment. Section 26030 also states that a home occupation is an accessory use, which is incidental to the use of the dwelling for residential purposes. The applicant resides at the property and would like to offer therapeutic services to clients in her home, not to exceed 5 individuals at a time. The applicant is considering building an addition onto the home and will see clients in this location. This is the addition plans that the applicant provided with the application, and this is just miscellaneous information that you may use to make your decision, but the actual addition is not a part of your decision making today, just for your information. This is the survey provided by the applicant. Originally it was provided, and we noticed that the breezeway, she had the breezeway listed at 23 feet long, and our new regulations state that the maximum length of a breezeway is 20 feet. So they are aware of that, and they have revised their plans to make sure that they meet our standards. And that will undergo a building permit review when they actually do apply for that. So just wanted to make you aware. Section 26030 size states that use of the dwelling for the home occupation shall be clearly incidental and subordinate to the use of the dwelling for residential purposes. A home occupation shall occupy less than 50% of the floor area of the principal dwelling unit. So the primary residence is 2,323 square feet. The proposed addition is 1,064 square feet, and 760 square feet of that will be used for the home occupation. So that is, that does meet section 26030, number 5, relating to size, because it is less than 50% of the floor area of the principal dwelling unit. The applicant appears to meet all the standards of section 26030 relating to the residential building and lot, accessory structures, activities and products, employees, size, the resident operator. She will not have commercial vehicles, and there will be no deliveries. This is the north view on Oakley Drive. The applicant's property is to the right. This is the south view on Oakley Drive. This is the applicant's primary dwelling, 6207 Oakley. And this is a view of the left side yard. And a view of the right side yard. This is the adjoining property to the north. And you can see on the aerial map where that property is located, circled in blue. These are the adjoining properties to the west, so right across the street. And in summary, the applicant is requesting a conditional use permit for a home occupation on 1.7 acres, offering art therapy for clients. And that's all I have.
Okay, questions for Brooke?
Can you go back to the picture where the addition shows where the addition is, relative, where the road is and where?
The applicant, I will let them go in more detail on this, but they did give me a call a couple weeks ago, and I think they've decided to put it on the other side of the house. Originally, it was going to be attached on the left side, but I think now they are planning to put it on the right side. So the survey that you have shows it on the left,
Okay.
which was when they submitted on July 25th.
Okay, so for perspective, can you go to that one, please?
Which one?
The one you have. There. They're talking about going to the right side where it only shows 26 feet between the house and the
Yes.
property line?
I didn't ask for much detail. It's really ancillary information. If you were to approve the home occupation, we just wanted to make sure that the addition was not over 50% of what the primary dwelling area is, so that it would meet this standard. And we would check that as a part of their building permit application.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is there any restrictions or concerns about on-street parking, or are there any limitations that would pertain to that neighborhood or that road regarding on-street parking?
You cannot have on-street parking. They would have to obviously park in the driveway. The applicant cannot have more than 5 individuals at a time. You can ask her how many she thinks she'll have at once. But if you look at the picture I provided, it looks like their driveway would at least hold 3 or 4 cars at a time.
But you answered my question as to whether on-street parking is allowed on that particular road.
It is not allowed.
It is not.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, further questions? Thank you, Brooke.
You're welcome.
Okay, if we can have the applicant come forward. Good morning.
Good morning.
Raise your right hand, be sworn in.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
And state your name and address, please.
My name is Chelsea Nemec. I reside at 6207 Oakley Drive, Crestwood.
Okay. If you can justify the project, tell us what it is you're trying to do.
Basically, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to help people. And this is how I help people. My profession is an art therapist. I'm also a licensed professional clinical counselor. So what that means is that I'm dually licensed through the state as well as nationally recognized through the exams that I've taken. I just want to take care of people. I want to help people when they're in crisis. I currently work at a psychiatric facility in Louisville, and this would be a way for me to bring it home. Oldham County is my home. I moved here back in 2006 when I started my career at Cedar Lake Lodge, which is what led me to art therapy. And I just love it here. I love it here, and we have a community here that takes care of one another, and I want to be part of that, is what it boils down to. We have an aging population, and then we have an up-and-coming generation of people that are having kids. And so kids and seniors, those are my people. Those are the people I connect with. Those are the people that I want to help the most. And if I can help the people that live in my neighborhood, that live in my community, that I shop with at the Walmart and see at the Kroger, then that's what I want to do. I'm small town at heart, so that's why I am applying for this and would like to do this. The reason that I'd like to do it at my home is because I live with my parents. They're in the audience, I guess is what you'd call this. And I want to be there for them as well. And instead of working 80 hours a week at a hospital, I'd like to work 40 and put in 10 or 15 at home in this building and be there if they need me. So if you have any questions, that's really all I have.
If you go into specifics of who's
Yes, sir.
coming, what would be there, you refer to psychiatric, are these people going to be issues that we need to be concerned with for the community? Talk about safety,
Sure.
other people that would be coming, like if someone comes for the art therapy, who would be allowed to come with them? Would they be doing stuff in your yard? Are you putting up a playground? I'm just trying to give
Yes,
us a
sir.
picture of what you're going to be doing. I understand
Yes,
your
sir.
passion.
Yes.
Give us a picture.
Okay. So typically how art therapy works and how this would work is you would have 1 to 2 people at a time, depending if say your mother needed assistance, then you would drive her, right, to wherever she needed to go. So someone would bring them. I would have a waiting area. That's on the building. Part of that building is going to be a waiting area where we can have a therapy session in private because confidentiality is important, but where there would be someplace indoors out of the weather where someone could sit and wait for their family member or friend, whoever it may be, while they receive services. I do not intend on putting up a playground. It's not a daycare. When people come to receive services, they're there to receive services. I don't want 1 million people coming to my home. This is not going to be a back-to-back business. This is called 10 to 15 hours a week. As far as safety is concerned, when you talk about safety, the people in our community that need help often don't seek help because they won't leave our community to drive to Jefferson County to receive the help that they need. And as far as psychiatric issues, if someone needs something more urgent than what I have to give them and what I can provide them, then that's why we have emergency psychiatric services in Louisville and at the local area hospitals. So as far as safety is concerned, I don't feel that it would put my home, my parents, or my neighbors at risk. Because if I thought that it did, I wouldn't do this. Because my family is the most important to me. So I hope that answers your question about safety.
Tell us more about your client base. Who would be coming? What is their condition that they would be coming for? Because it's a therapy, they must have some related condition that goes with it. And
Yes.
explain
Okay.
that, and if you can give us
Yes.
enough, I don't need specifics of a person, but if
Yes,
you
sir.
use somebody as an example, as the most extreme example, then
Okay.
we get an idea of range.
Gotcha. Okay. So we'll start with kids. A lot of kids go through difficulties. Their parents are getting divorced. They're acting out. They're truant from school, maybe. Maybe they're talking back to teachers, talking back at home, having some emotional problems due to a divorce, drastic change in their life. Maybe they're just having problems going from middle school to high school. Okay? It could range from anxiety to depression. It could range for smaller children. A lot of times when they feel anxious or depressed, it comes out as anger because they don't have any other way to interpret it and to express it. So a lot of times when you see an angry child, they're not really angry. They're scared or they're sad and they don't know how to express that. So it comes out as anger. So from children up to seniors. We have a lot of seniors that have dementia. They're dealing with retirement, and retirement is a huge life change. And a lot of people that go through that go through depression, they go through anxiety, they have difficulty adjusting to their new circumstance. They don't feel like they have purpose or meaning in their life anymore because what do we do? We're wrapped up in our job for 50 years, and then all of a sudden we don't have our job. So a lot of times in the senior community, that's what we deal with, is retirement, life changes, maybe the death of a spouse, grief work. So psychiatric health and ailments can range. And if I don't feel like I am capable, it is my ethical and my moral duty to refer that client to someone who has the expertise to do those, to deal with those things. So it can range from anxiety, depression, just sadness. Sometimes somebody just needs somebody to talk to. Sometimes you just need somebody to sit and listen to you so that you feel heard. Or it could range down to depression. A lot of times I work with people with Alzheimer's and they're having memory problems, so we do memory care and it helps them to remember their loved ones. So the psychiatric issues can range, but I can guarantee you everybody in this community has had some experience with one or more of those things.
I have a question pertaining
sir.
to the number of people that reside in the home. You said you live with your parents.
I live with my mother and my father.
Okay. Is there anyone else that lives in the home?
I have a friend staying with me right now, but he's leaving on Friday.
Okay. So
So,
the total of 4 people then,
right now.
right now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All 4 people have cars?
Yes.
Okay. All right. As far as parking, what do you believe the number of cars maximum will be on site? People dropping off people, picking people up. Do you feel like you have adequate space for that number of
Yes,
cars?
sir. Yes, sir. We have, where I had a graduation party when I graduated from college, and we fit 12 people, 12 cars in our driveway. I know from the picture it doesn't seem like it's that long, but you can actually very comfortably fit 8 vehicles, squeeze them together, 12. There would never be that many.
So
for-
if you
this.
had all 4 cars there plus 5 students or patients,
Oh,
I should
I
say.
would never have 5 at a time
Okay.
like that. The reason that we put that in the application is that's your stipulation, not to have more than 5 people on the premises at a time. In all actuality, you're probably going to have 1, 2, maybe 3 if a mother has one child that needs assistance and one child she needs to wait with in the waiting room, that kind of thing.
So this isn't a group thing that you do?
No.
You're dealing with a person at a time?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I think you answered my question. Thank you.
Thank you.
So you have,
Yes, sir.
there was in the application, as you see on the drawing, there was a
Yes, sir.
drawing about where that was going to be, and then we heard
Yes.
testimony from Brooke that you're talking about not doing it that way. So how are you planning on doing this?
Actually, sir, this is correct. The initial addition was going to be on the opposite side of the building, but upon getting the survey, we paid and had a survey come out, and we found that the setback would there's a 15-foot setback in AG1, and so a building would not fit and it would not be appropriate on that side of the building, to be honest. And so what we did is we moved the addition to the other side, which actually makes it wheelchair accessible because it would go straight from the driveway to the building. Because it's very important to me for this building to be handicap accessible, because I also work with individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, and a lot of times that requires walkers, wheelchairs, arm crutches, etc. So this is correct. And with the exception of where it says 23 foot for the breezeway, we were unaware of that rule. So we just simply changed it to comply with your rule. Here's the thing. I want to do what's right and I want to follow the rules. I'm one of those like goody two-shoe kids that you hated in high school. Okay? So if you have a rule about something, I need to know about it so that I can follow it, because I don't want to put in thousands of dollars already. Thousands of dollars into something only to have trouble because I didn't pay attention to a rule or a guideline. So if there's something here that I need to know about, please let me know.
I've heard you mention that you work at the hospital and you've worked with this clientele currently. Can you tell me
Yes,
what
sir.
license and qualifications you have?
Yes, sir. I have an LPCC in the state of Kentucky. That is the Licensed Professional Clinical Counselor. And then I also have the LPAT, which is the Licensed Professional Art Therapy License. Those are both Kentucky state licenses. In addition to that, I have the ATRBC, which is the board certified registered art therapist, which is a national recognition. Those are the 3 licenses that I currently hold. But only 2 really matter in the state of Kentucky, which is the LPAT and the LPCC.
What was the LPCC again?
Licensed Professional Clinical Counselor.
Describe your services, please.
Well, it depends on which license. Okay, for the art therapy license, if I'm doing art therapy with a client, typically that involves making some type of an art piece.
Well, and I'm talking about what you're proposing here to do. Talk to me about the services you're talking about offering.
Art therapy and clinical counseling.
And what does that look like? Yeah.
Okay, art therapy, what that looks like is a person comes in, they do a piece of art, we explore their feelings, what they're thinking about, what they're wanting to discuss, what the issues are that they're needing to work on. And usually that comes out in the art. I know that that's weird. A lot of people don't understand art therapy, and that's perfectly fine. I like to tell people that don't know much about art therapy, Freud had a couch, I have a paintbrush. So it's just a means for communication. We use art as a means of communication. And then typically a session, unless it's warranted, typically a session goes about 55 minutes from start to finish. And then once they leave, then of course I do my documentation according to the rules and standards of my profession. And all of that is secured. Confidentiality is a huge key point in my profession. We have certain standards when it comes to confidentiality, and they're huge. We're HIPAA compliant, so that's what art therapy looks like. Most of the time, clinical counseling involves people wanting to come in, sit on the couch, sit in a chair, and discuss what they need help with, whether it's grief, loss of a loved one, or anxiety about starting a new job. It could vary. And a session typically lasts 55 minutes. I take notes, then I handle my documentation, and that's it.
What hours are you thinking about?
Well, the hours would vary. Typically, children, they have school, they have class. Sometimes parents want to come in before school. I'm not a fan of that personally because a lot of times things can come up in a counseling session, and for a child to have to carry that with them the rest of the day through school, I prefer not to do that because sometimes that can make for a very difficult day. Typically, hours would go no later than 7 or 8 p.m. They would be daytime hours on my off days from the hospital. So I would say starting at about 10 and ending no later than 7:30, 8 o'clock. There are times that an emergency is going to happen. How many times do emergencies happen to all of us? So there would be emergency circumstances, but those are literally emergencies, and in the case of emergency only. I want to create clear boundaries, not just for myself, but in respect for my neighbors and respect for my parents, not to have anyone on the premises past 8 o'clock.
So you do plan on keeping your position at the hospital at the same time?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay.
Yes, sir. This is an auxiliary position. This is something that I want to do 10 to 15 hours a week in addition to my work at the hospital because I love the acuity of the people that I work with at the hospital.
Okay, thank you.
Can you tell me about advertising and signage?
Well, I was told that we weren't allowed to have a sign. And so we had originally wanted to put a sign about yay big that's an oval on the, I don't know how to flip, but we have a blackboard fence right there, and we just wanted to put a small sign there, but I was told that we weren't allowed to have signage, so we won't have signage. I'm just going to plant a berry bush and tell people to come to the berry bush. Because a lot of what I do is very personal. It's not, this is not a business like on Main Street where you just happen to stroll in and be like, hey, I think I'm going to get art therapy today. This is a purposeful business that people will be seeking out and coming to. They aren't just going to drive by and go, oh, I think I'm going to get art therapy today. Let me poke my head in there and see what this is about. So.
All right, any other advertising or lighting on the property?
I mean, I'll have a porch light on the building, but nothing, no spotlights or anything like that.
What about any other employees?
No, sir. No, sir. I don't know if this is the time to mention it, I have a couple of neighbors that came with me today and also a couple of neighbors that wrote letters of support. I don't know when or if you need those.
We can go ahead and take, actually put them up on the overhead.
Sure.
Okay,
Next one.
next one. Okay,
And then do you want these?
yeah, please. Thank you. Okay, any other questions?
I have one question pertaining, if you have an emergency situation, are you going to have a developed security plan in place in case of emergencies?
Yes, yes. And that's something that I will discuss with my patients at your initial meeting. When you come in to meet a therapist for the first time, you go through documentation, you sign papers, you sign a contract agreement saying, I'm going to participate in therapy, et cetera, et cetera. And during that time, you explain the emergency situation plan, basically. And what that plan for me is, one, they would phone me and say, hey, this happened, I really need to see you. If it's something that is not emergent, I'll see them at the very next possible appointment that I can, maybe the following day. If it's something emergent that they need assistance right this minute, and it's a life or death emergency, then I'm going to refer them to emergency services. Okay? If it is just something that they just have to see somebody and it's just really an emergency, it will be a judgment call for me whether I put off the appointment, I see them then, or I have a phone consultation, which those are common practice for an emergency situation, or if I feel that I need to see that person. If I feel that I need to see that person, it is my duty as a helper, as a professional in this profession, to help that person and be there for that person. And that could mean them coming to the office. It could mean me meeting them at the hospital. There's variables. And those are the things that we discussed during the contract. I will tell you, emergencies do happen, but not as often as you would think. I would say maybe once or twice within a year's period are you going to receive an emergency like that where you're going to need to see someone later than 8 o'clock.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other?
Yeah, so then will you have any employees, anybody working for you ever on the site?
No.
And then when you look at the drawing that's proposed, then it looks like
Yes,
to
sir.
me that the part of what you're gonna build will cover the existing, part of the existing driveway. So then I think
Yes.
that when you refer to the number of spaces you did before, it's gonna
Yes.
be reduced because you're gonna be covering part of the driveway, correct?
Yes. Yes. Well, actually, yes, but only by one parking space, if that makes sense. Because the way that the breezeway is going to be, it is going to be tall enough that a vehicle will be able to fit underneath of it. So if I have, like I said, right now I have one person staying with me, so there's 4 of us. However, he'll be gone before this all happens, okay? If I have 4 cars, which actually 6 cars can fit on just one half of the driveway, but if I have all 4 cars on one side of the driveway, that still leaves room for at least 3 other cars. Now, I'm not going to have an appointment at 1 o'clock and then have another person at 2 o'clock so that they have to pull in and park behind them. I'm conscientious enough that I'm going to have an appointment at 1 o'clock and then an appointment at 3 o'clock so that there's plenty of time for a parking spot to always be available for nobody to get blocked in. We're not going to have people parked on the street in our neighborhood. That's just not safe. I mean, I know it's not allowed, but fact of the matter, it's just not safe. I walk the loop around Oakley. It's, I think, 1.3 miles. And if there was ever a car parked on there, if a car was coming, I'd have to jump in the grass to go for a walk around my neighborhood. Like I said, I don't want this to be Main Street LaGrange, ladies and gentlemen. This is a residential community. I want it to remain that.
All right, further questions? Rob, you good? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, is there anybody here wishing to speak in favor of the applicant? Yep. Morning.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And your name and address, please.
I'm Robert Semro, and I live at 6301 Oakley Drive.
All right, Robert? Yeah.
I just wanted to say I'm in support of the proposed plan. I've known the family for approximately 10 years, and they've been a wonderful family. They're extremely conscientious and trustworthy, and I have no problem whatsoever with what's being proposed. So,
Okay.
okay.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, anybody else wishing to speak in favor?
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
And name and address?
Patricia Munt at 6205 Oakley Drive.
Okay.
And my husband and I are very much in support of Chelsea's project that she's wanting to complete at her home. And we have known the family for approximately 10 to 12 years. And the whole family is caring, and they would do anything for you. So I think it would be a great asset for us to have her complete this.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I'm the mother. I'm the mother. It's our home.
Just hang on, if you want to get to the podium, there's a microphone there that needs to pick up. Go ahead and raise your hand and.
All right, do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yeah. How come we don't say "so help me God" anymore? Okay.
All right,
That
and-
was just a question.
And your name and address, please?
Cynthia Trujillo, and that's me, 6207 Oakley Drive.
Okay.
Actually, the house is our house, but the house is actually Chelsea's house because we're putting her name on the deed and everything. She's our only child. If anything happens, it's her house anyway. She moved home to help me because I'd had a stroke, and so I had and still have a little bit of memory problem as if I have too many things going at one time. So at the time when I had the stroke and I had too many things going at one time because I was teaching art therapy at the Home of the Innocents, and I did that for 15 years. I was running my own business, so having a sign shop and painting wall murals. And so when I get too many irons in the fire, many of you all do the same thing. It's like everybody else has got like little memos and stuff, and so that's how you all keep, you know, your life straight. My life, even with like Post-it notes all over my body, I would have a little bit of memory problem, you know, like the remote control in the freezer, those little things. So I went to a therapist, although I was a therapist, and you all have to understand is that people that go to therapists are not always completely on that end of the spectrum. It can be somebody that's having memory problems and they have a lot of too many irons in the fire, and all of a sudden it's kind of frustrating. And when I would go to the therapist, which was right over here in the Crestwood Plaza or whatever it is, where Southeast is, you know, when I would go over there, I was just like mortified that anybody would see me going into the shrink's office, because I thought that my neighbors would see me and go, wow, she's crazy as a loon. And so I always wanted to carry around a pamphlet with me and go, I am not crazy, I'm having a memory problem. So that's what Chelsea talks about, the confidentiality of it. We want to keep it exactly very low key. Our neighbors in our neighborhood, like across the street from us, is a 7-acre plot. Well, theirs is 7 acres. Theirs is 15 acres. It's all horses. Behind them is Dabble's farm of 200 and some acres. So there's nothing back there. Behind of us, it's the donkey farm, hundreds of acres. You know, even though there are some homes around us, it's rural, it's low key, it's very relaxing for people to come there. But it also is a very, as far as like you all talked about having advertising, well, nobody really wants to pull in where there's a big advertising sign that says, I'm going to the nut doctor. And a lot of people feel like that. I always felt like that, you know. So it is a low-key thing. We're very proud of our daughter. My husband worked at the San Antonio State Mental Hospital for years. I worked with the children at the Home of the Innocents for years. We were missionaries in Mexico for 15 years. We raised our daughter to be a caregiver, and we're very proud of the things that she's done and all of the schooling. I think we own a little bit of University of Louisville. from all the money that's been spent there. This is not exactly what, when you say it's counseling or therapeutic services, it almost sounds like we're going to have Silence of the Lambs rolling them in there. That is not the type of people that comes in. It's people like you and I that go in because maybe there's a divorce, maybe there's my brother's dying today, and that's the truth. And I'm having a little bit of issues today, you know, because he's in the hospital dying. So I'm able to handle it because I've got an in-home shrink. No, I'm able to handle it because, you know, but a lot of people can't. There's too many irons in the fire for many people. And so for them to just have somebody that is an outside of, you know how you say you can't see the forest for the trees. So when you've got somebody outside of that forest to say, okay, here's your way out. It's not as horrible as you think it is. And that is the type of services. And as far as art therapy and having children in there, believe me, it is that again. You're not talking about a school shooter. You're talking about a little boy that wants to stomp his feet and tell his mother no because she's got 14 boyfriends. You know what I'm saying? And so a lot of times the school, because in the schools now, we've pulled the counselors out. And matter of fact, one of the letters that came, the people that are across the street from us, they're both in, they work for Jefferson County Public Schools. And so they have pulled a lot of the school counselors out. And so a lot of times the teacher will say to the parent, your child really needs to get some counseling, but there is not a school therapist, counselor to send them to. And so they recommend that they take them someplace. And, you know, that's the kind of kids and the kind of people. A couple of our neighbors wanted to be here. They couldn't. The lady across the street, her husband, they're younger than us, he had a major brain bleed. And then her mother, who she takes care of, had a major artery bleed in her stomach 3 days ago. So we've been helping with those people. The man behind of us, his wife just passed away suddenly, just got up and dropped over of a heart attack. And so Chelsea's been up there doing a little bit of grief counseling with him. That is the type of services. And oftentimes it's not, you know, it's just not what, when you see psychiatric or therapeutic services.
Yeah, I got it.
You see what I'm saying?
Thank you.
That's what I just wanted to say.
Thank you.
But we're in favor of it, obviously.
Questions? I do have a question. So Chelsea's name is on the property or is not at this point?
We actually are going over to the attorney today to put her name on the property. We already had his name is
So
Rademeyer?
if I may, then this is just a simple point that I don't see it as holding anything up. But under 260-230, it says that if they are not the property owner under section 6, says if they're not the property owner must agree in writing to all proposed uses. So you need to actually write that down so that that's a part of the application is what would be happening. So obviously you're speaking in favor and shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you. All right, anybody else wishing to speak in favor? Anybody opposed? Board members, questions for anybody in the audience? Okay, I'll close the floor, open it up for discussion.
I had an initial question early on about parking, and I think that the testimony that we heard, that's just simply not going to be an issue. Based on the anonymity of the clientele and the testimony that we heard, there's not going to be, it doesn't sound like there's going to be an overlapping concern. When I read the application, some of the information said, 5 people. I thought there may be the propensity for having a driveway full of automobiles with folks receiving services as well as waiting. And based on the testimony that we heard, that concern that I initially had has long since been dealt with or put to rest, I guess we could say.
Anybody else?
I think that one of the things when I originally read the case, then about the number of people that would be on site would be one of the things I was concerned about, that we had to put as a condition. But now that I understand that the standard is they can't have more than 5 people, I don't think that we need to, I don't feel a need, at least personally, that we need to put 4 or 3 or something there. It's just the standard is they're not supposed to have more than 5 for home occupation. So I don't think we need any additional, I don't see any other conditions if we were to approve.
Well, any other considerations for conditions? Hours? Testimony was given that no signage, no lighting, no advertising, no employees. Had, any other thoughts for?
Well, the hours was the only one that I was questioning whether we should say a specified limitation on hours is. That's a question I'm asking more than stating an
Well,
answer.
testimony was given that 7 or 8 o'clock at night. So if we wanted to put conditions on it, that was the testimony given. Any other thoughts for any conditions?
Yeah, because in that testimony, it was stated that 10 would be the earliest, and
10
7 or
a.m.
8. So if we put it at 8, is
Right. Okay. No other discussion? I'm willing to hear a motion.
move to approve OC-18-027, based on the testimony of the need for this kind of services, based on the fact of explaining how the building would be, what the parking would be, the understanding more what would be going on, understanding that this is not a group activity, it's more of a one-person activity, based on the testimony that there's not overlapping appointments, so there shouldn't be a backup of many cars, and other items discussed during the questioning of the applicant. Move to approve the conditional use because it's not in conflict with the elements and objectives and policies of the comprehensive plan, and it will fit within the community or the neighborhood as proposed. The conditional use permit shall only apply to the plan considered at the August 16, 2018 Oldham County Board of Adjustments public hearing. Hours shall be limited from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
I have a second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? It's been approved. Board Member Pate, would you like to read the next one?
Yes, sir. We have docket number OC 18028. An application has been filed requesting a front yard setback variance for a proposed structure to be located at 6533 Claymont Crossing, Crestwood.
Good morning. As Mr. Pate stated, an application has been filed requesting a front yard setback variance for a proposed structure at Claymont Crossing in Crestwood. The zoning is R2 residential and the property size is just over half an acre. The property outlined in red is the subject property today. It is located at the corner of High Point Ridge Road and Claymont Crossing. The applicant is requesting a front yard setback variance to build a new home on Lot 45 in Claymont Springs subdivision. The lot is a corner lot and must observe the R2 front yard setback of 30 feet along both frontages. It also has a 27-foot electric, telephone, gas, and cable easement along both frontages. This is the survey provided by the applicant. Outlined in red are the property boundaries. Outlined in yellow is the 27-foot electric and telephone easement. And In blue is the 35-foot front yard easement, the 35-foot front yard setback. Actually, I'm sorry. This is Amy's presentation, so I'm got these backed up. The 12-foot Louisville water easement is the yellow, and the green is the 27-foot electric, gas, and telephone easement. The lot also has a 15-foot conservation easement that runs through the center of the lot, limiting the placement of the new home. And highlighted in green is the conservation easement. You can see it runs right through the middle of the property. And this is a zoomed in view. And so this shows you, this is again the survey that shows you all of the different easements located on the property that will determine where the placement of the lot, or the placement of the home can be. The applicant is proposing to construct the new home 27 feet from the front property line along Claymont Crossing, requiring an 8-foot front yard setback variance. The plot plan provided by the applicant shows the proposed home to be 20 feet from the conservation easement. So this is a zoomed in view of the where the home will be located on the lot. You can see the back corner is approximately 20 feet from the conservation easement. And the front garage is what is encroaching into the 35-foot front yard setback. So you can see about 220 square feet will be located inside of the 35-foot front yard setback. The applicant's justification statement states that the land on each side of the conservation easement slopes significantly, necessitating the placement of the home closer to the street. The conservation easement and steep slopes makes the lot virtually unbuildable without requesting a variance, and the proposed home will complement the established pattern of development and quality of development that was originally intended by the developer. This is the view from the corner of Claymont Crossing and High Point Ridge Road, looking into the property. And this is a view looking on Claymont Crossing back towards the entrance at Veterans Memorial Parkway. And this is a view looking from the corner of High Point Ridge Road and Claymont Springs, looking down High Point Ridge Road. A zoomed in view of the applicant's lot. This is the adjoining property to the north, and on the aerial map in the corner, it is the tract that's circled in blue. Adjoining property to the east, this is one of the gardens of Claymont Springs condos. And these are the adjoining properties to the south. This is the adjoining property to the west, which is another vacant lot. This is looking into the property from Claymont Crossing, and the star is where Amy was standing, and she was looking into the property. The arrow is pointing to where she's looking. This stake shown on the picture shows the location of the front of the garage. Another view of the location of the front of the garage. And if you look at the aerial on the bottom, the star depicts where the picture is being taken from, and the arrow shows you what you're looking into. So you're looking into the back of the lot. I think the purpose of these is to show you the slope. This is from the back of the lot, looking up to the front towards Claymont Crossing. And just another photo showing the steep slope. So in summary, the applicant is requesting a front yard setback variance. The required front yard is 35 feet. The proposed front yard is 20 feet, and so the variance request is 8 feet. That's all I have.
All right. Can you go back a bunch of slides? Go to, show me the LG&E, right there. That's fine right there. Go back one more. Yep, that's fine. Okay. All right, very good. If you can just leave it there. Any questions for Brooke?
I've got one. The 15-foot easement, it's conservation.
Yes.
They could put the house up to the easement, is that correct? They're not required to stay 20 feet away from that, is that correct? Okay, so as long as they stop at or before the easement, because the easement defines itself and that's where the property line or the house, the structure can go to.
Correct. It does not have to be 20 feet from the easement. You may clarify with the applicant why they've put it that far away from.
I think that there was some reference as to topography that
Yes,
was
the
made.
slope is pretty.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for Brooke? Thanks, Brooke. Okay, we can have the applicants come forward.
Good morning to the board.
Morning.
I have,
Where are you in first?
sure,
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
yes, I do.
And are you an attorney or?
I'm Jess Lipsius, counsel for Inverness Homes, the applicant. To my left is Mr. Calvin Bailey, a project manager for Inverness Homes, and Mr. Mike Hill, also with Inverness Homes.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, he's our surveyor, land design and development. I have, instead of a PowerPoint or whatnot, I like to deal with attachments. It just makes it simpler for me. Do you mind if I pass these out?
That's fine.
Thank you. So, yes, I do. Brooke really did my job for me. There's two issues here. One is a steep embankment and slope. Two is protection of the conservation easement, which is meant for stream mitigation, okay? And yes, the easement does not permit building on or over it. We're concerned with, in addition to the steep embankment, also disrupting or disturbing the easement during construction. So this 20-foot barrier, if you want to call it, between where we'll construct the home and where the easement lies will provide ample room where that easement should not be disrupted or disturbed at all during construction. But most importantly, it's the safety of constructing the home to keep it structurally intact and from potential erosion issues or structural issues down the road. And this location that you're looking at is pretty much the only location, given the easement, that this home could be built on the property. If you look at attachment 3, that's just another version of what you're looking at on the overhead right now. That's where the home would be built with the easement being in yellow there. 4 and 5 are just to show you that we considered other construction of this home with meeting the setback requirement. However, in 4 and 5, it would be the testimony of Mr. Bailey that the home cannot be built safely given the steep embankment. Okay, so we want you to know that we considered other options before requesting the variance. Attachment 6 is simply just some photos of the general vicinity of the area that really Brooke already showed you. Exhibit 7, I think, is one of the most important photos in here, or two, and it shows what I think is really neighborhood-wide for the neighbors, for anyone. It's a pretty negligible difference between where the neighboring property sits at 35 feet back, where ours would sit at 27 feet back. So the character of the vicinity wouldn't be disrupted. Exhibit 8, just another looking from the ground up. You can see this embankment's a lot to deal with, and it's going to be a challenge still, but it will be a safe and structurally integral home upon completion of the construction. Just running through the factors here that apply, we should be no adverse impact on public health, safety, or welfare, no alteration of the essential character of the general vicinity, no hazard or nuisance is created for the public. There should, I hope you don't see this as an unreasonable circumvention of the zoning regs. I think there are special circumstances to consider as well, in that the easement literally right through smack dab the middle of the property. There's only one other lot that suffers from that, if you want to call it. Although the conservation easement is a good thing, it just makes construction a bit difficult. One other, and I think also very important, is the homeowners, the future homeowners, they already reduced the footprint of their desired home by 20%. So they wanted home A, couldn't do home A, so they reduced it by 20% to get to where we are today in needing only an 8-foot variance. Not aware of any opposition, and again, just to summarize, to do it safely and to preserve the conservation easement, the variance is required, and that's what we ask of you today.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? The home to the right of this location, did the company build that home as well?
That is correct, sir.
That is correct. And that home was built,
Can you speak up in the podium?
Absolutely.
and that home was built safely?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So-
The lot next door that you're referring to, the topography is very much different than the lot that we're discussing today.
Okay. From a level standpoint,
From a
or
level
a soil standpoint?
No, from a level standpoint.
Okay.
So is there more presentation to go? Because you referred to a testimony that he's going to give, so I didn't know if we were still in the presentation stage or we're in the
I
question
think I
stage.
meant, what I meant is if he was to testify about.
That would be important to the case, I believe.
Okay,
So it would be
okay.
really important to
Want
state those
to talk
facts.
about how this home can be built safely.
Absolutely.
In where, with the given variance.
Absolutely. And thank everybody for your time. As I speak and you have questions, I may invite Mike from LD&D up here with me. They are an engineer firm that we use quite often. In lieu of, to add to everything that Jess said.
I'm sorry, hang on. Let's get your name and address real quick.
Oh, would you like my home address or business address?
Business address.
Okay, Calvin Bailey, project manager for Inverness Homes for Kentucky area, 11305 Reed Hartman Highway, Cincinnati, Ohio.
Okay. All right. Mike, we'll get you if you were going to speak in a minute also. All right, go ahead, Calvin.
Okay, so we bought this lot before my involvement with Inverness Homes, and we've had it for quite some time. And we most of the time a lot of times we'll base our decisions to purchase a lot based on the contour lines on the record plat, the grade lines. This lot is extremely grown up. We have done some clearing. So based on the existing contour lines that we've had, and this house would work on the lot just fine. However, when I look at the existing contour lines, the home the customer originally wanted to purchase, the contour lines were saying that there was from from where the conservation easement starts and the back left corner of the home, it looked like there was going to be somewhere between a 4 and 8 foot grade difference, which isn't really that significant. We deal with those type of terrains all the time. But the actual, and I haven't been able to get or LD&D have been able to get an actual grade shot of it because it's all grown up. But in actuality, it is more like 15 to 18 feet, and it is a slope that is about like that. So, with that being said, what Jess is referring to as far as protecting, for one, protecting the conservation easement, forget about the structural part of building the home. If the conservation easement is starting at the bottom of my pencil and the back corner of the house is several feet away from it, obviously we're out of the conservation easement, but the slope is so severe, I don't know of any type of products that I could use to protect that conservation easement to keep silt from getting down into it. That's one item, as what Jess was describing. The other is with a slope that steep, I do not feel comfortable, nor does anybody, a part of my construction team, feel comfortable setting a house on an embankment that is that steep. So the proposed variance, what it does is it actually moves the house. We're proposing 8 feet. Our intentions are to move the house forward 7 feet 9 inches, so we're still 3 inches away from the public utility easement. And it gets us at the top of the top of this steep embankment, the back of the house at the top of this steep embankment. So that way it can be safely built, because I don't even know if we try to put that house on that steep embankment, I don't even know that Mark Tice, the building inspector, would pass it. He may want me to get a structural engineer involved, and as a builder, I don't feel comfortable doing it. That's why we're asking you for the variance. In addition, the house that was selected by our customer, we have base plans, right? Like a lot of other regional or large size builders. He had picked a house that has a footprint of 1,958 square feet. And that does include the garage. It might not be the total living space, but it's close. But that's the footprint that the house would take up on the lot. When all this came about, before we started the construction process, I had the lot staked, and I made the decision as the builder, I can't do this. I can't build a house like this. So I actually met the customer, and I gave our customer an option. I gave him a couple options. It's, Mr. Miller, I apologize, but due to the unforeseen lot conditions, I can't build you this house, even with a variance. So please remember that, not to confuse anybody. The first house that the customer picked, after I realized I couldn't build the house the way it was because of the steep embankment, I went ahead and had our surveyor put new stakes in 7 feet 9 inches forward. With that original house plan that we had a contract with our customer, I was still on that steep embankment, right? So going back to my meeting with the customer, I let them know that the plan they picked out, I cannot build on that lot. So our customer, and I told them I would let them out of the contract and give them their earnest money back. Or they could look at our plans and maybe go to a 2-story home that has a smaller footprint, and I would write a contract with him on the contingency I could get the variance approved. So he picked out a 2-story house that has a footprint that's about 20% smaller than his original plan. It's less in depth and it's less in width. That way it gets the house not just further away from the conservation easement, but off of that steep slope and onto the more level part of the yard. And I then had our surveyor come out and stake that house off so I could look at it and confirm that the back of the house would be off that steep embankment. Because please understand, and I'm sure everybody here has quite a bit of knowledge of what I'm talking about, typically I don't really have to go through those steps, right? So, you know, I have somebody create a plot plan just like that, and I use the contour lines as reference to tell me if I can build the house on the lot or not. But due to the vast differences, I had to have a visual. So once I got that visual, that moving the house 7 feet 9 inches forward, that we could actually put the house there safely and not have to worry about the conservation easement or damaging it or the structural integrity of the home, that's when we officially filed.
Okay. All right. Very good, thank you. Questions?
I answered exactly what I asked, so
Calvin,
thank
I
you very
had
much.
several questions that you hit right on the.
Right.
Yeah,
Perfect.
Exactly. That
You
that's
covered
one
a
of
lot
those
of it.
Yeah.
This may be for the gentleman from the survey group. I'm sorry, what was your name? Mike Hill. Okay, Mike,
You want to come forward, Mike, and let's get your name and address?
Sure, Mike Hill, I'm a planner, I'm not a surveyor, with Land Design and Development, 503 Washburn Avenue, Louisville, 40222.
based on the topography and grade conversations that's being had, I'd like to have some actual information. By moving the home forward 8 feet, how much elevation change do we gain or lose by moving in the home 8 feet?
I don't have the exact number for you. Can we switch over to the? Thank you. This is the exhibit that we created that shows the contours of the site. As mentioned before, the contours that show on the preliminary subdivision plat from 2003 or 4, and the contours that you see here don't accurately depict the contours of this lot. We think there were challenges with the severity of the slopes and the thickness of the tree cover on this lot for any surveyors who've looked into this property. We've actually had discussions with the county engineer regarding this lot. And he's had inspectors out there. I don't know if he's been out there himself. We have an email from him that where he verifies that although this conservation easement is only 15 feet wide, the ditch, in fact, is every bit of 25 feet wide, or excuse me, 25 feet deep and 30 feet wide. So the ditch at the bottom of this conservation easement extends beyond the 15 feet. The steep slopes on this lot extend beyond the 15 feet on either side, which creates the challenge. So I can't answer your question exactly how much they'll gain. I can say that from this picture taken down at the bottom of the hill, it moves them away from the tree mass, the ditch, the creek, enough to safely and sufficiently be able to grade around a new house construction site. And the 8 feet makes a big difference to be able to do that and construct the house safely compared to where the current setbacks would require the house to be located.
Does your client own additional lots in the subdivision that this house could be placed elsewhere without this interference or concern of the topography?
That's a very good question, sir, and unfortunately the answer is no. Previous to my joining the management team and running our Kentucky division, we have built quite a few homes in Claymont Springs. I'm going to say 10 or maybe a couple more, somewhere roundabout. This is the last lot that we have in Claymont Springs. And obviously now that I've been on the management team for the past year as the division manager, I understand why this is our last slot. We are a builder developer. We currently already have one development in Oldham County, and we just opened up a new section to that. And that's our primary focus, but we bought lots in Oldham County initially to try to get a foothold, because as you know from the address, I live here in Kentucky, but our corporate office is in Cincinnati. We're a regional builder, so we've kind of moved in this, into this marketplace. That's a little bit more of a response than what you were looking for, but the answer is no.
So in this development, you have no other lots that you can entertain for this client?
That is correct.
Do you have lots elsewhere within a scope of travel that this house would fit more appropriately within Oldham County?
You know, that's a good question, and I'm not going to be dishonest. We do. We do. You know, within Oldham County, right? Our customer, he is a physician, and he, I guess, and for some honesty and transparency, he was living in a home directly beside our new development in Oldham County that I just had mentioned. He was living in a community directly beside it, and him and his wife have separated and have divorced, and he does not want to live in our developed community because he feels like that's a little bit too close to his ex-wife. So he likes this lot. And again, not to be redundant, I offered to let this gentleman out of his contract and give him his money back. But he really wants this lot. He really likes this lot. He's got 2 little boys that's going to be living with him half the time. And as long as I can get this house off of that steep embankment, which I have to because I can't build on that, he still wants it. So that's maybe a little bit more information than I should probably share, but I always feel like it's always best to be honest and transparent.
Does your company offer homes of a shallower design and a wider floor plan other than what's being proposed here?
This is about our limit for the requirements of this community and what he's looking for. Don't quote me on the exact requirements, but I think it's 1,800 square feet for 1 stories, 2,000 square feet roundabouts for 2 stories. I think it's the subdivision requirements, and I apologize, I meant to bring that with us, but just with that being said, because that's pretty close, this footprint is basically, it's significantly smaller. So the footprint now is around 1,500 square feet, and then an additional 400 plus for the garage, and then the remainder of the square feet is upstairs. So the total square footage is 2,100 square feet. And that's about as small as we've got that'll work in that community.
But what I'm asking is, do you make a home, does your company offer a home that's wider and less depth within the realm of plans that you offer? Because obviously you're not suggesting that you could sit down and create a plan. From what I'm hearing you say is you have a set of plans that you offer your clientele. So therefore, do you offer a plan that is wider and less depth that would more appropriately fit this lot without a variance?
That's a good question. The answer is really no, because we do offer plans that are significantly smaller, but not to fit the requirements for this community. So we have two different types of home plans. One is called our Brighton series. That's your smaller homes that are starting around 1,400 square feet. And then we have our Legacy series. This is the Brighton series home plans we offer don't meet the square footage requirements for this community. So without actually designing a plan, we're at our limit. We may have one more 2-story. Don't quote me on that. We may have one other 2-story plan that we could use, but the footprint is basically the same. There's not any amount of difference that would get me off of that steep bank. There's no plan that I've got that would get me off that steep bank.
So just to be clear, we don't know what the difference is if we move the home forward by 8 feet. We have no idea what the grade gain or loss is by moving the home forward 8 feet. If I understand you correctly, you don't have that factual information. Is that correct?
I can use the contours that we were provided. This is through the Oldham County GIS system.
Sure. You're asking to move the home forward 8 feet because there's a gain. My question is, what is the gain? And
I can tell you the original plan that my client picked out without a variance.
Let me interrupt you just for a moment. I'm sorry to be rude. Based on what you're asking for, you want to move the home forward 8 feet. What is the gain in topography or elevation change?
My estimation is about 8 to 10 feet.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
If you go by the drawing, that drawing that's proposed right now, if you look at that drawing, the numbers on it, you're somewhere between 6 and 7 feet on the drawing based on the information that's being provided. So if that's not accurate,
Which is what he stated
which is
earlier.
what he's saying, it may be more than that or less than that. But based on this information, it looks to be somewhere about 6 to 7 feet
Thank you.
in height.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Yes.
The only thing I wanted to add, because I don't know, to kind of add to what you said, and maybe answer your question better, this specific plan, when I say I think by getting a variance, we could gain 10, around 10 feet. That is just to get us off, that's just to get us off that steep slope. We're still actually, we're actually about, the house is actually about from, I'm gonna say from here to where you gentlemen and ma'am are sitting, from a bank that goes straight down. The edge, the bottom of that steep embankment is the conservation easement, and my estimation is, and based on the information I can gather, it's around 25 feet drop straight down. So that's all we're trying to do.
All right, thank you. Okay, any further questions? Okay, anybody in the audience wishing to speak in favor of the applicant? Opposed? Board members, questions for anybody? Okay, I'll close the floor, open it up for discussion.
Do they have any final statements before we do that?
Final statements?
Sure.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you. I think to summarize, testimony is to get it away from the steep embankment, the variance is necessary, and that's what will create a safe structure. The variance will create a safe structure and without disruption to the conservation easement. I went through the factors when I opened. I think without the easement, it would be depriving the lot of, or creating an unnecessary hardship. They'll be just in front of the utility easement, and I think when you look at attachment 7, the photograph there, it's not going to alter the character of the vicinity. So that's what stuck out to me, and we appreciate your time and obviously request the variance.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now I'll close the floor for public hearing and open it up for discussion.
When I hear the testimony, when we look at the drawings that were put on there, that drawing doesn't show it, but it's okay. Showing how the conservation easement goes from corner to corner on the lot, it makes it a lot that's hard to build on to begin with. So you have to either go on one side or the other. The pictures I thought that were taken by you or Amy or whoever took the pictures showed the grade fall off, and then the picture where they showed some of it had been cleared and the fall off there. The fact is that easement's there because water's going to be going through it, and during some of the biggest rains, it's going to have more water. And so you look at the worst case scenarios. The fact is, if it can gain 6 feet, 7 feet, 10 feet to get away from the potential for flooding, it seems like a reasonable thing to do. this is kind of ancillary to the line of thinking here, but I did appreciate hearing a builder talk about that they weren't going to put it right up to the line, but the 3 inches, because we get cases all the time where they plan on building it where it's not across the line, but then they end up across the line because of the construction process. So I do appreciate when builders are trying to be responsible in that way. So for me, when I see the pictures and show the cross straight over to the neighbor, how yes, it's going to be slightly in front of their garage, but it doesn't appear to alter the central character. So in summary, what I'm saying is this lot has a lot of limitations, especially in topography, and with the easement and the easement plus in a flood area, when in the worst case scenario of worst case of water, it seems to be a reasonable variance to grant, in my opinion.
Okay.
Based on the testimony and the documentation provided, especially the secondary documentation that they provided today, I think gave us even more insight on it. I think the location is reasonable and would be acceptable, in my opinion.
I have a reservation due to the proximity of the house being placed to the property line being 8 feet off. As close as it is to the other neighbor, I think the home's going to be noticeably sitting forward of the house next door. I think that the lot poses a host of difficult challenges to try and place a house on it, and it's regrettable. Just sometimes we have to deal with what we have to deal with. With that easement going through the middle of it, and the elevation changes are severe, I'm just of the opinion that we're trying to put a square peg in a round hole. I think that the conversation would be a whole lot easier had if the home wasn't 40 feet deep or however, whatever the depth is, if we went to a wider home. If the house wasn't 8 feet off the property line, being directly in line with the house next door, I don't think it would be as noticeable or stand out. My concern is that this particular builder, as conscientious as they are about the limitations that the lot poses, has no other option based on floor plans that they offer, short of looking at coming up with another floor plan, which is where I was trying to go when I was asking the questions of a much shallower home. But with that being said, I'm just concerned for how it's going to look with the house being noticeably sitting forward 7.5 feet. That's just my observation and my perspective.
Yeah.
One thing that hasn't been brought up in this hearing today is that this front property line is not a straight line, it's an arc. So the setback is also on an arc. So even if you went with a wider house, you're still going to keep bumping up against that front yard setback issue because, again, it's not a straight line. So now you're going to have to fit a wider house and wiggle that in somehow. But nobody has brought up that fact, and I just wanted to point that out. It's not this property line is not a straight line. Therefore, that setback is not a straight line either. So
Sure.
When you try to put a square into a curve, which is what you're talking about, you're always going to end up with some issue on either topography or setback.
Sure, and this home is actually deeper than it is wide. It's 48 feet deep, it's 46 feet wide.
Yeah, but as you went wider, you'd also end up
You start getting closer to the easement again on the other side as well. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. It poses a host of challenges from one side of this lot to the other. and you know, it's unfortunate this is the last lot they've got a buying client that really wants this lot. However, just sometimes I feel like we have design limitations that would push us into creating another design that would be more appropriate to the lot itself. In this particular case, again, it's just my observation and, you know, my perspective on it.
Okay. Further discussion? Okay, I'm willing to hear a motion.
Based on the testimony of the limitations of the lot, specifically the topography, the grade, the fall-offs, the fact that it is a corner lot, that there's a conservation easement going from corner to corner, and that alternatives were in fact considered, that we move to approve OC-18-028 because it will not adversely adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare, will not alter the essential character of the vicinity, and not be a hazard or nuisance, and will not allow an unreasonable circumvention of the requirements of the zoning regulation. The variance shall only apply to the application considered at the August 16, 2018 Oldham County Board of Adjustments public hearing.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
Have a second?
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Opposed?
Project's been approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think they are.
Submitted? Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Pate.
Yes, docket number OC 18029, an application has been filed requesting side yard setback variance on lots 1 through 4, 11 through 14, and 19 through 22 of Independence Park subdivision located at Apple Patch Court and Independence Place, Crestwood.
All right, good morning, Brooke Beeman with Oldham County Planning and Development Services. As Mr. Pate stated, the request is for side yard setback variances at Independence Park subdivision. The zoning is R4. The original application was for 12 lots. The amended application is for 10 lots. On this screen, highlighted in red, lots 4 and 19 are removed from the request. So the request is actually for 10 lots. This is the aerial view of the site. You can see Independence Park is located off of Apple Patch, which is off of Highway 329. The lots that are requesting the variance are highlighted in red, and I've marked with a black X which lots no longer need the variance. So lots 19 and 4 no longer need a setback variance. This is the zoning of the general vicinity. Again, the zoning of the property is zoned R4. There's C1 and I2 to the east and R4 to the west. There's R4 to the north and to the south as well. And just to give you an idea of what's existing around the area, there's the Brownsboro Woods Apartments. There's the Apple Patch facility, and that's located here. And then Celebration Park, which is a single-family residential subdivision, is to the east, to the west as well. There is no previous history before the Board of Adjustments. The subdivision plan that originally included attached single-family residences, which are duplex units, received lot width and side yard setback variances at the Planning Commission as a part of a revised subdivision plan application in 2012. The side yard setback variance was approved for a 0-foot setback, so it was a variance of 7.5 feet for each side, and that was because the grant funding for the project required that each garden home be on its own fee simple lot, even though the residences share a common wall. This was the revised preliminary plan from 2012 that went before the Planning Commission. You can see that all of the single-family residences shared a common wall, but each individual unit was on its own lot, and that was for financing purposes. The variances approved by the Planning Commission in 2012 applied to attached single-family dwelling units. The applicant is proposing to build detached single-family units which will not share a common wall. Therefore, the variance does not apply to this product. The applicant is requesting a side yard setback variance of 4.5 feet on each side to allow the houses to be 3 feet from the property line on each side. Circled in red are the lots that will need the setback variances. Before, lots 4 and 19 were included, but the applicant no longer needs those lots, variances for those lots. And there are houses, the duplex units on these lots and these lots and this lot. So those are already built on, and the applicant does not own those properties.
Wait, say that again? What?
So,
You don't have to put the arrows back up.
okay, there are already duplex units existing. I'm not sure at what year they were built. They were not owned by the applicant. The applicant acquired the lots that he's requesting the variances for, but there are already existing duplexes on the grayed out lots.
So
Lots
those were
5
under,
through 10 and 15, 16, 18, and 17 already have structures on them. This is an example of a plot plan that would be submitted for a building permit. This is actually lot 12 that is requesting a variance. It shows the house rendering being 3 feet from each side. Fire code requires that there be a minimum of 5 feet between structures. There will be a minimum of 6 feet between structures. So if you think about on lot 11, if there was a home that was 3 feet from the property line, that would be 3 feet. And then lot 12, there's a home that's 3 feet. So that's 6 feet total, which meets the fire code standard. The summation of the applicant's justification statement is due to the narrow lot width, it would be challenging to fit houses on these lots with setbacks of 7.5 feet on each side. And granting these variances will not harm the public safety and welfare, and the addition of this housing style is consistent with the neighborhood and desirable for the community. So if you look on the aerial view, I'm looking into the roundabout, and then looking on the plan, I've circled what you'd be looking at as well, just to give you some orientation. This is the roundabout on Independence Place. This is the adjoining property, which is an existing structure on Apple Patch Court. This is the south view on Independence Place. And the north view on Independence Place. These are the adjoining properties, 7705 and 7707 Independence Place. You can see they're attached single-family structures, so duplex units. And I've circled on the aerial map where those are located for orientation purposes. So just to make clear, this portion is this lot, and then this portion of the house is located on this lot, even though they share a common wall. These are also adjoining properties, 7709 and 7711 Independence Place, and that's circled on the aerial map for orientation purposes. And this is 7713 and 7715 Independence Place. This house is 7725 and 7727 Independence Place. And so all of this open space is these lots here. This is 7714 and 7716 Independence Place. And the purpose of showing these is just to give you an idea of the character of the neighborhood. These are the Brownsboro Woods Apartments. So in summary, the applicant is requesting side yard setback variances. The required side yard setback on each side is 7.5 feet. So the required total side yard is 15 feet. The proposed side yard on each side is 3 feet, and the proposed total side yard would be 6 feet. So a variance for each side would be 4.5 feet, and the total variance requested is 9 feet on each lot. And that is all I have.
So when we talk about this, the number of feet, that's from the part of the building Like if there was an overhang with a gutter, we're talking 3 feet from the edge of that to the property line, not the side of the building.
Typically, we do the footprint. We look at the footprint, not necessarily the overhang of the roof. But that, again, that, you may ask the applicant that question. I know the builder is here and he can, but when we take in a plot plan, typically it's the footprint of the house that shows the setback from the property line.
This may also be a question for the applicants, but lots 4 and 19, why were those removed?
They received building permits, and I have copies of those, so they no longer need the setback variances.
They received them, does that mean they had the variances that they were supposed
No,
to?
they meet the setbacks. They're one-car garage structures. You may ask the applicant for more information on why they've been able to fit those houses.
Okay, further questions? You want to recess? Okay, thank you, Brooke. Can we get a motion for a quick recess?
I make a motion for a 5-minute recess.
Do we have a second? Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, 5 minutes.